The rain fell hard on the city that evening. Steady, cold, and gray, the kind that soaks through your coat before you even realize you're wet. Downtown Chicago shimmered under streetlights, blurred by water on windshields and the tired eyes of people heading home after long days. In the back of a sleek black Bentley, a man sat alone staring out the window without really seeing anything. He wasn't used to silence like this. Most days his life was full of noise. Board meetings, ringing phones, assistants rushing in with urgent updates, investors demanding answers. But tonight, there was only the soft hum of the engine, the rhythmic swish of windshield wipers, and the drumming of rain on the roof. He'd told his driver to take the long way home, not because he wanted to see the city, but because he didn't want to go back to his empty penthouse just yet. The truth was, he felt hollow. He had everything people said they wanted: money, power, a name that opened doors. But none of it filled the quiet space inside him. His mother had passed away 3 months ago, and in her final days she'd held his hand and whispered, "All I ever wanted was to see you happy with a family of your own." He hadn't known what to say. He'd been married once, years ago, but it ended quietly without drama, just two people who realized they were better apart. He had no children, no one waiting for him at home, no one to call just to hear his voice. The car slowed near a community center on the edge of the financial district, a modest brick building with warm yellow lights glowing through rain-streaked windows. A sign out front read Oakwood Youth and Family Services. He'd donated to them before anonymously, as he did with most charities. He never visited. But tonight something made him watch as a group of kids were led out under umbrellas by staff members. Then he saw her. A little girl, no older than 7, stood alone under the awning, clutching a soaked teddy bear with one ear missing. She wore a thin jacket too small for her, and her sneakers were splattered with mud. While the others hurried to vans or waiting guardians, she stayed behind, looking out at the street like she was waiting for someone who never came. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror. "Sir, shall I proceed?" He didn't answer right away. His eyes stayed on the girl. She turned slightly as if sensing someone watching, and her gaze landed on the black Bentley. For a moment they just looked at each other through the rain. Two strangers separated by glass. Wealth and worlds of experience. Then, without hesitation, she stepped off the curb, walked right up to the car, and tapped lightly on the window beside him. The driver tensed. "Sir, I'll handle this." "No," the man said softly. "It's all right." He pressed the button and the window slid down with a quiet whir. Rain misted into the car. The girl didn't flinch. She leaned in just enough so her voice wouldn't be lost in the downpour, but not so close that she seemed bold. She spoke in a whisper like she was sharing a secret meant only for him. "You need a wife," she said, "and I need a father." The words hit him like a punch to the chest, not hard, but deep. He blinked, stunned. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could say anything, a woman in a bright yellow raincoat came running over. "Oh my goodness, sweetheart. There you are." She knelt beside the girl, her voice full of worry but gentle. "I told you to wait by the door." She looked up at the car, eyes wide with apology. "I'm so sorry, sir. She's had a rough day. We're from the Oakwood Center. She didn't mean any trouble." The man shook his head quickly. "No trouble at all." But the girl was already being led away, her small hand tucked into the woman's. She glanced back once, just once, and in that look, he saw something he hadn't felt in years: hope. Not the kind tied to stock prices or acquisitions, but the raw, fragile kind that lives in a child's eyes when they still believe the world can change. The window rolled up. The car pulled away. The city blurred again, but he couldn't forget her words. Back in his penthouse, an apartment so large it echoed when he walked across the marble floor, he poured himself a glass of water instead of whiskey. He stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows looking down at the city lights, but all he could see was that little face in the rain. Who was she? Why had she said that? Had she seen him as just another rich man in a fancy car? Or had she somehow sensed the emptiness behind his tailored suit? He thought about his mother again. She used to say that children see truth more clearly than adults because they haven't learned to lie to themselves yet. He walked to his study and opened his laptop, typed Oakwood Youth and Family Services, Chicago, scrolled through their website, saw photos of smiling kids, donation drives, volunteer opportunities, nothing about a little girl with a worn-out teddy bear. He called his assistant the next morning, even though it was Sunday. "I need you to find out everything you can about that center," he said, "and see if there's a girl there around 6 or 7 who might have been outside last night in the rain." His assistant didn't ask why. He'd worked for the man long enough to know when something mattered. 2 days later, a file arrived. Discreet, respectful, no names unless necessary. But it confirmed what he suspected. A recent placement, mother gone, no relatives able to take her in. Temporary foster care while they sorted things out. The social worker's name was listed along with contact info. No photo of the girl, which he appreciated. Privacy mattered, he didn't call right away. He thought about it for 3 more nights. Walked through his silent apartment. Sat at his dining table meant for 12, eating takeout alone. Watched the sunrise from his balcony, wondering what it would feel like to have someone ask him how his day was. Not for business, but because they cared. On the 4th morning, he picked up the phone. "Hi," he said when a woman answered. "My name is, well, you might know me from donations. I'd like to visit the center. Not as a donor tour, just to see how things are run. Maybe talk to your team." There was a pause. "Of course, sir. We'd be honored. I'd also like to meet a little girl who might have spoken to me the other night." Outside in the rain. Another pause, longer this time. Then gently, "You mean Mia?" He didn't know her name until then. But hearing it, Mia, made her real in a way the memory hadn't. "Yes," he said. "Mia, we can arrange that," the woman said. "But she's been through a lot. She's sweet, but she doesn't trust easily. And she's got this idea in her head." She trailed off. "What idea?" "That if she can help someone find love, maybe that person will choose her." He sat down hard in his chair, because that's exactly what she'd done. She hadn't asked for money. She hadn't asked for toys or candy. She'd offered him a solution to his loneliness and in return, hoped he'd fill hers. He visited the center the following week. Dressed down, jeans, sweater, no watch worth more than a car. He didn't want to scare her. When he walked into the small playroom, she was sitting cross-legged on a rug, drawing with crayons. She looked up. Her eyes widened. Then slowly she smiled. "You came back," she said. "I did," he replied, kneeling so he wasn't towering over her. "You said something that made me think." She studied him for a long moment, then held up her drawing. It showed a tall man in a suit, a little girl with pigtails and a heart between them. Underneath in wobbly letters, "Family." He felt his throat tighten. "Is that what you want?" he asked softly. She nodded. "But you need a wife first." "Then it's real," he didn't correct her. Didn't tell her that families come in all shapes. Didn't say that love isn't a transaction. Instead, he sat beside her on the rug and picked up a blue crayon. "Can I help you color the sky?" he asked. She handed him the crayon without a word, and for the first time in years he didn't feel alone. Mia didn't remember much about the night her mom didn't wake up. Just the cold tile floor, the smell of medicine that never helped, and the way the paramedics spoke in low voices like they were trying not to scare her, even though she already knew. After that, everything moved fast. Strangers in uniforms, a social worker with kind eyes and tired shoes, a small suitcase packed with clothes that didn't quite fit, and then the Oakwood Center, a place that smelled like soup, crayons and hand sanitizer. She was 6 when it happened, now 7 and still waiting for someone to say, "You're coming home with me." Not forever, just for good. At first she cried every night. Then she stopped. Crying didn't bring her mom back, and it didn't make the other kids stop whispering about the new girl whose mom died. So Mia learned to be quiet. To watch, to listen. She noticed things, like how the lady who ran the center always saved an extra cookie for the saddest kid, or how the man who came once a month to fix the leaky sink always let the little ones hold his tools like they mattered, and she noticed the black car. She'd seen it before, parked far down the street during donor visits, always leaving before anyone came out. But that rainy night it stopped right in front of the awning, and the man inside, he looked sad. Not angry sad or tired sad, but the kind of sad that sits deep in your chest, like you've got a hole no one can see. Mia didn't plan to talk to him. She just did. The words came out like they'd been waiting inside her, bubbling up from somewhere she didn't understand. "You need a wife and I need a father." It made sense in her head. If he had a wife, he'd have a family. And if he had a family, maybe he'd want one more person in it. Her. She didn't expect him to come back, but he did. The next time she saw him, he wasn't in a suit. He wore soft-looking jeans and a sweater the color of toast. He sat on the floor like he belonged there, not like he was slumming it for a photo op. He asked her name. He listened when she answered, and when she showed him her drawing of the two of them under a big yellow sun, he didn't laugh or say it was silly. He just said, "That's a really nice sky you made." After that, he started coming every Tuesday, always at 4 p.m. right after snack time. He'd bring books, real ones with pages you could turn, and sometimes puzzles with pieces shaped like animals. He never asked too many questions. Never said poor thing like some adults did. He just stayed. The woman who took care of Mia, Elena, watched from the doorway the first few visits. She'd been a social worker for 12 years, and she'd seen rich people do charity projects before. They'd show up with cameras, hug a kid for the photo, and disappear when the story got boring. But this man was different. He remembered Mia's favorite color, green, that she hated carrots but loved apple slices, and that she always tucked her teddy bear under her pillow during nap time. One afternoon, after Mia fell asleep on the reading rug with the bear clutched to her chest, Elena sat down across from him at a tiny table meant for children. "You're not like the others," she said quietly. He looked surprised. "I'm just trying to be here." "She's been through a lot," Elena continued. "Her mom struggled with addiction. It wasn't her fault, but Mia carries guilt like it is. She thinks if she's good enough, quiet enough, helpful enough, someone will choose her." He nodded slowly. "That's why she said what she did that night. She wasn't just asking for a dad. She was offering to fix my life so I'd fix hers." Elena's eyes softened. "Exactly. And that breaks my heart, because no child should feel responsible for an adult's happiness." They sat in silence for a moment, listening to the hum of the building, the distant sound of kids laughing in another room, the clink of dishes from the kitchen. "Is there any chance she could be placed permanently?" he asked carefully. Elena sighed. "It's complicated. No relatives have stepped forward who can provide stable care. The system moves slowly. And adoption? That's a long road. Home studies, background checks, court dates. Plus, she's got trauma. She doesn't trust easily. She hoards food in her pockets sometimes, just in case there isn't enough later. She startles at loud noises. These aren't things you fix with money." "I don't want to fix her," he said quickly. I want to be someone she can count on." Elena studied him. "Why?" "Be honest." He looked down at his hands that signed million-dollar deals but now held a half-finished puzzle of a giraffe. "Because I've spent my whole life building things that don't last. Companies change. Markets crash. But a kid who believes in you? That's real. And I think I needed her as much as she needed me that night." Elena didn't smile, but something in her expression shifted. "Then you'll need to do this the right way. No shortcuts. No headlines. Just patience." He agreed. Over the next few weeks, he started doing more than just visiting. He read up on foster care laws, met with Elena after hours to understand Mia's needs. He even attended a parenting workshop, sitting in a circle of tired-looking adults in a church basement, learning how to respond when a child has nightmares or shuts down. Mia noticed the change too. One day she asked, "Are you learning how to be a dad?" He didn't laugh. "I'm learning how to be someone you can trust." She thought about that. Then she handed him a folded piece of paper. "I made you a list." He opened it. In careful printing, she'd written, "Say goodnight every night, too. Don't yell 3. Keep promises. Let me keep Mr. Bear 5. Stay." He read it twice. Then he folded it carefully and put it in his wallet. "Number 5 is the most important," she whispered. "I know," he said, but not everything was easy. One afternoon, during a game of checkers, another boy from the center, older, louder, teased Mia. "You think that rich guy's gonna adopt you? He's just bored. He'll leave like everyone else." Mia didn't cry. She just got very still. Later, when the man came to pick up his coat, she wouldn't look at him. "Mia," he said gently. She shook her head, eyes on the floor. "You don't have to come anymore." His heart dropped. "Why not?" "Because you'll leave anyway. Everyone does." He knelt so they were eye level. "I'm not everyone. You said you'd come last Tuesday, but you didn't." He froze. He had missed one visit. His company was in the middle of a crisis, and he'd been stuck in emergency meetings all day. He'd called Elena, but he hadn't spoken to Mia himself. "I'm sorry," he said. "That was my mistake. I should have called you. Can I make it up to you?" She shrugged, but her eyes were wet. He reached into his bag and pulled out a small box. Inside was a music box, a wooden one with a tiny ballerina that spun when you opened it. "I saw this and thought of you. It plays You Are My Sunshine," and she took it slowly, opened it. The soft tune filled the quiet room. "Will you come next week?" she asked, barely audible. "Every week," he promised, "until you tell me to stop." She didn't tell him to stop. Instead, she started leaving little notes in his coat pocket during visits, drawings, jokes, lists of things she liked. Rain, pancakes, when you read in a silly voice. He kept every one. Elena watched it all unfold with cautious hope. She'd seen too many false starts, too many broken promises, but this felt different. Not perfect, just real. One evening after Mia was in bed, Elena sat with him in the center's small office. "She's starting to believe you'll stay," she said. "That's huge. But it also means if you leave, even for a good reason, it'll hurt her more than before." "I know," he said. "And I won't leave. You say that now. But life happens. Jobs change. People get scared. Are you ready for the mess? The sleepless nights? The days she might scream, 'I hate you,' even though she doesn't mean it?" He thought of his penthouse, silent and spotless. Then he thought of Mia's laugh when he made the dog in the book talk like a robot. "Yes," he said. "I'm ready." Elena nodded. "Then let's start the paperwork." It wasn't glamorous. It was forms, interviews, fingerprinting, and long talks about his childhood, his finances, his reasons for wanting to parent. He answered every question honestly. Not because he had to, but because Mia deserved someone who showed up fully, not just with money, but with truth. Meanwhile, Mia kept waiting. Not with the desperate hope of before, but with something quieter, something like trust. And every Tuesday at 4 p.m., rain or shine, a man in a simple sweater walked through the doors of the Oakwood Center, carrying a book, a snack, and a heart that was slowly learning how to beat for someone else, not because he needed saving, but because she reminded him that being needed was its own kind of guide. Life settled into a rhythm neither of them expected. Every Tuesday and Thursday he showed up at the center like clockwork. Sometimes he brought soup when Mia had a cold. Other times he just sat quietly while she built towers out of blocks, only speaking when she asked a question or needed help spelling a word. He never rushed her, never acted like his time was too valuable, and slowly, almost without noticing, Mia began to relax around him. She started saving him a seat at snack time. She'd wave when he walked in, not with big excitement, but with a small, sure smile, like she knew he'd come. She even let him read to her at bedtime during weekend visits, something she'd never allowed with other adults. He'd sit on the edge of her bed, voice low and steady, turning pages until her breathing slowed and her fingers loosened around Mr. Bear. But outside the center, things weren't so calm. At work, people began to talk. He missed meetings, turned down business trips, said no to late-night calls. His assistant fielded questions from board members. Is everything all right? Has he lost focus? Is this about that kid? He didn't deny it. When asked directly, he simply said, I'm making room for what matters. That answer didn't sit well with everyone. One evening, after a tense board dinner, an older investor pulled him aside. You've built something incredible, the man said, swirling his whiskey. Don't throw it away chasing a fairy tale. Kids in the system? They're damaged. You think you can fix her? You'll burn out. Or worse, she'll disappoint you. He didn't get angry. He just looked the man in the eye and said, I'm not trying to fix her. I'm trying to be someone she can count on. There's a difference. The investor shook his head and walked away, but the words lingered. Back at his apartment, he stared at the city lights and wondered if he was being naive. Was he really ready for this? He'd never changed a diaper, never dealt with a tantrum, never sat through a parent-teacher conference. What if he failed her? The doubt gnawed at him, until Saturday morning when he picked Mia up for a day out. They went to the park, not a fancy one with private entrances, just a regular neighborhood park with swings, a slide, and kids running everywhere. Mia held his hand tightly at first, eyes scanning the crowd like she was bracing for something bad to happen. But as the hours passed, eating hot dogs, chasing pigeons, laughing when he pretended to be scared of a squirrel, Her grip loosened. She even let go to climb the jungle gym, glancing back every few seconds to make sure he was still there. And he was. Later, sitting on a bench with ice cream dripping down their fingers, she said, "This is the best day." He smiled.
Yeah, it is.
In that moment, all the doubt faded. This wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up. Again and again. Still, the real world didn't stop knocking. One afternoon, Elena called. "There's been a development," she said, her voice careful. "Mia's maternal aunt has come forward. She lives out of state, but she's requesting custody." His stomach dropped. "Does Mia know her?" "Barely. They met once when Mia was a baby. The aunt struggled with her own issues back then, never stayed in touch. But now she says she's clean, stable, and wants to raise her sister's child." "What does Mia say?" "She hasn't been told yet. We wanted to talk to you first. Legally, blood relatives get priority unless there's clear evidence they're unfit. We don't have that yet." He sat down hard. "So what happens now?" "We'll assess. Home visit. Interviews. Court might get involved. It could take months." He thought of Mia's list in his wallet. Stay. What if he couldn't? That weekend, he took Mia to the library instead of the usual park. She loved the quiet there, the smell of old books, the way sunlight came through the tall windows. As she browsed the picture books, he watched her, really watched. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she concentrated, the way she whispered to Mr. Bear like he was listening, the way she trusted him enough to fall asleep in the car on the way home, head leaning against the window. He couldn't imagine her gone, but he also knew he couldn't fight for her if he wasn't fully in. So he made a decision. He called his lawyer the next day. "I want to start the adoption process, officially." His lawyer hesitated. "Given the aunt's claim, it could get messy. Public even. Then we'll be careful. But I'm not stepping back." He also made another call to the head of his company. "I'm stepping down as CEO," he said. "Not retiring, just shifting focus." There was silence on the other end. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He didn't do it for show. He did it because he realized something. He couldn't be the kind of dad Mia needed while running a global company that demanded his soul. He'd built his life around control, numbers, plans, outcomes. But parenting wasn't like that. It was messy, unpredictable, and full of moments you couldn't schedule. And he was ready for it. He sold his penthouse, bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood with a backyard, a porch swing, and a room already painted pale green, Mia's favorite color. He filled it with soft blankets, shelves for books, and a big kitchen table where they could eat meals together. No marble floors, no echoing halls, just warmth. When he told Mia about the house, her eyes got wide. "Is it for us?" "Only if you want it to be," he said. She didn't answer right away. But that night she drew a new picture. A house with 2 windows, a swing, and 2 figures holding hands. Underneath she wrote, "Home?" He taped it to his fridge. Meanwhile, the legal process moved slowly, like everything in the system. Social workers visited his new house, asked him questions about discipline, routines, emergency plans. He answered honestly. "I'll learn as I go," he said. "But I'll never stop trying." Elena watched it all with quiet pride. She'd seen too many kids get passed around like luggage. But this felt like hope with roots. One rainy afternoon, much like the first night they met, Mia sat at the kitchen table in his new house, coloring while he made soup. She looked up suddenly. "Do you still need a wife?" she asked. He paused, stirring the pot. "Why do you ask?" "Because if you get married, does that mean you'll send me away?" He turned off the stove and knelt beside her chair. "Mia, listen to me. You don't have to earn your place here. You're not here because I needed fixing. You're here because I want you. No matter what. Even if I never get married. Even if it's just the 2 of us." She studied his face. "Promise?" "I promise." She nodded, then went back to her drawing. But a few minutes later, she slid a new note across the table. It said, "You're my dad now, even if the paper says no." He read it, then pulled her into a hug, gentle but sure. She hugged back tight. Outside, the rain kept falling. But inside, it felt like the storm had finally passed. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The aunt might fight. The court might delay. Mia might still have nightmares or days when she shut down. But for the first time in his life, he wasn't chasing success. He was building something real, something that couldn't be bought. sold or taken away. And it started with a whisper in the rain and a little girl who believed in second chances. The snow came early that year. Thick, heavy flakes that turned the streets white by dinner time. He'd just finished tucking Mia into bed in her new room, the one with the green walls and the window that looked out onto the quiet street. She'd fallen asleep clutching Mr. Bear, her breathing slow and even. He stood in the doorway for a long moment watching her, grateful for the stillness. He'd been living in the house for 3 months now. No assistants, no boardrooms, no late-night calls. Just grocery runs, bedtime stories, and the sound of Mia humming while she colored at the kitchen table. It wasn't the life he'd planned, but it was the one he wanted. He went downstairs, poured a cup of tea, and sat by the window, watching the snow pile up on the porch. The power flickered once, then went out completely, plunging the house into soft darkness. He lit a few candles, wrapped a blanket around his shoulders, and settled on the couch with a book. An hour later, a small sound made him look up. Mia stood at the bottom of the stairs, eyes wide, shivering in her pajamas. She didn't say anything, just stood there, frozen. He set the book down. "Bad dream?" She nodded, tears already spilling down her cheeks. I saw Mom. She was calling me, but I couldn't reach her. And then the house was gone. And you were gone too." He didn't hesitate. He opened his arms. "Come here." She ran to him, burying her face in his shoulder. He held her tight, rocking gently, whispering, "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." She cried for a long time, quiet sobs that shook her whole body. He didn't try to fix it, didn't say it's okay or don't cry. He just held her, letting her feel safe enough to fall apart. When she finally calmed down, he carried her to the couch, wrapped her in the blanket, and sat beside her. The fire in the fireplace crackled softly. Outside, the snow kept falling, sealing them in a quiet world of their own. "I thought you'd leave," she whispered. "Why would I leave?" "Because I'm broken." He turned to her, cupping her small face in his hands. "You're not broken, Mia, you're hurt. There's a big difference. Hurt things can heal. Broken things, well, sometimes they just need someone to hold them together while they get strong again." She looked at him, searching his eyes. "Do you really mean that?" "Every word." She leaned her head on his shoulder again. "I had a plan, you know. Your wife and father plan." She nodded. "I thought if I helped you find someone to love, you'd have a real family. And then maybe you'd want me in it too." He swallowed hard. "You didn't need to fix me to be loved, Mia. You were enough exactly as you are." She was quiet for a while. Then so softly he almost missed it. "I love you, Dad." His breath caught. She'd never called him that before, not out loud. "I love you too," he said, voice thick. "More than anything." They stayed like that until the candles burned low and the fire turned to embers. He carried her back to bed, tucked her in, and sat on the edge of the mattress until her breathing evened out again. But that night changed something. The next morning, over pancakes shaped like stars, her request, Mia looked at him with new clarity. "I don't want a wife for you," she said. "I just want you," he smiled. "Good, because I don't want anyone else either. Just you." But the peace didn't last. 2 days later, Elena called. Her voice was tight. "The aunt filed formal custody papers. She's claiming you're an unstable influence, too wealthy, too sudden, no parenting experience. She's asking the court to grant her emergency placement." His stomach dropped. "What does that mean for Mia?" "For now, nothing changes. But there will be a hearing, and she's demanding supervised visits." He ran a hand through his hair. "I won't let her take Mia. Not after everything." "I know," Elena said gently. "But you have to be smart. No rash moves. No public statements. The last thing Mia needs is her life turned into a news story." He agreed. But inside, fear coiled like a snake. That afternoon, he took Mia to the park, their park. She ran ahead, laughing as she tried to catch snowflakes on her tongue. He watched her, heart aching. What if he lost her? What if the court decided blood mattered more than love? Later, as they walked home, hand in hand, she asked, "Are you sad?" "Just thinking," he said. "About the aunt?" He stopped walking. "How did you—" "I heard Elena on the phone," she admitted. She didn't know I was listening. He knelt in front of her. "Mia, whatever happens, I'm fighting for you. Do you understand?" She nodded, eyes serious. "But what if they say no? Then we'll keep fighting, together." She squeezed his hand. "Okay." The weeks that followed were tense. Social workers came more often. Lawyers exchanged letters. He spent hours filling out forms, gathering character references, even recording videos of their daily routines to prove stability. Mia noticed the stress. She stopped asking for bedtime stories sometimes, saying, "You look tired." She'd leave little notes on his desk. "You're doing great. I believe in you. Don't give up." One evening, after a long day of depositions, he sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands. Mia brought him a mug of hot chocolate, made with too much sugar, just how he liked it. "You're my hero," she said simply. He looked up, tears in his eyes. "No, Mia, you're mine." The hearing date arrived faster than he expected. The courtroom was cold, sterile, nothing like the warmth of their home. Mia sat beside him, dressed in her best dress, holding Mr. Bear like a shield. The aunt sat across the aisle, nervous, fidgeting, avoiding Mia's gaze. When it was her turn to speak, she talked about regret, about wanting to honor her sister's memory, about how she'd gotten her life together. He listened quietly. He didn't interrupt, didn't argue. When it was his turn, he didn't talk about money or power. He talked about Tuesday afternoons, about how Mia saved him the last cookie, about the way she whispered good night even when she was mad at him, about the night she called him Dad. "I'm not perfect," he said, voice steady, "but I show up. Every single day. And she knows it." The judge asked Mia if she wanted to say anything. She stood up, small but brave. "I want to stay with him," she said clearly. "He's my home." Afterward, they waited in the hallway, hearts pounding. The judge called them back in an hour later. "The court recognizes the aunt's biological connection," the judge began, and his stomach sank. "However, the child's emotional well-being, stability, and demonstrated bond with the current caregiver carry significant weight. At this time, custody remains with the petitioner. The aunt may request visitation, but only if approved by the child's therapist and social worker." Relief hit him like a wave. He looked at Mia. She was crying but smiling. Outside the courthouse, snow was falling again. Mia threw her arms around his waist. "You didn't let go?" she whispered. "No," he said, holding her close. "I never will." But the victory wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new kind of fight, one not against the system, but for trust, healing, and the quiet, daily work of building a life together. And as they walked to the car, hand in hand, snow dusting their shoulders, he knew one thing for sure: he'd choose her again and again, in every lifetime. 1 year after the courtroom decision, the house smelled like cinnamon and crayons. Late afternoon sun slanted through the kitchen window, catching dust motes dancing in the air. At the table, a small girl sat with her tongue poking out in concentration, carefully writing her name on a birthday card. She turned 8 that morning, 8 candles on a chocolate cake, 8 presents wrapped in bright paper, and 8 years of a life that had already held more storms than most adults ever face. But today, there was only peace. Her dad sat across from her, grading math worksheets, not his own but hers. He'd traded boardrooms for bedtime routines, quarterly reports for reading logs, and late-night strategy calls for helping with spelling words. He didn't miss the old life. Not really. What he'd gained was quieter, deeper, like the way she'd started leaving her shoes by the door without being asked, or how she'd whisper, "I love you," before drifting off to sleep. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. The adoption had gone through 3 months ago. No fanfare, no press. Just a simple ceremony in a county office, a judge's smile, and a piece of paper that finally said what their hearts had known for a long time. They were family. He still remembered the moment she saw the new birth certificate with his name listed as her father. She'd traced the letters with her finger, then looked up at him with eyes full of wonder. "It's real now," she'd said. "Yes," he'd replied. "It always was. Life wasn't perfect." Some nights she still woke up crying, tangled in dreams of the past. Some days she got angry for no clear reason, slamming doors, refusing to talk, pushing him away like she was testing whether he'd leave. But he never did. He'd sit outside her door, quiet and patient, until she opened it and whispered, "I'm sorry." And he'd always say, "You don't have to be sorry. I'm right here." That was the thing no one told you about love. It wasn't grand gestures or perfect moments. It was showing up when it was hard. It was choosing someone over and over, even when they're messy or scared or unsure. He'd learned that from her. Now, As she finished her card, she slid it across the table. "It's for you," she said. He opened it. Inside, in her careful handwriting, it read, "Happy birthday to the best dad. You found me in the rain. Now I'm home." Below that, a drawing, 2 stick figures under a rainbow holding hands, one tall, one small. Above them, in wobbly letters, "Me and Dad." He blinked fast, throat tight. "This is the best present ever." She grinned, missing a front tooth. "I made you something else too." She ran to her room and came back with a small wooden box, the same one he'd given her months ago. The music box that played "You Are My Sunshine," but now, tucked inside was a folded piece of paper. He opened it. It was her original list, the one from the early days. "Say goodnight every night. Don't yell through. Keep promises. Let me keep Mr. Bear 5. Stay at the bottom." In new handwriting, she'd added, "You did. Thank you." He pulled her into a hug, and she hugged back hard, her small arms wrapping around his neck like she never wanted to let go. Later that evening, after dinner and a movie and a bath that took forever because she insisted on washing Mr. Bear too, he tucked her into bed. She was sleepy but smiling, eyes half closed. "Dad?" she murmured. "Yeah? Do you think Mom would be happy for us?" He thought for a moment. "I think she'd be really proud of you, and grateful that you found someone who loves you as much as she did." She nodded slowly, then whispered, "I miss her sometimes." "I know," he said gently. "It's okay to miss her, and it's okay to be happy too." She reached for his hand. "Stay till I fall asleep?" "Always." He sat in the rocking chair by her bed, the one he'd bought secondhand and sanded down himself, watching her breathe. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the nightlight and the distant sound of a car passing on the street. Outside, the world kept spinning, full of noise and chaos and uncertainty. But in here there was only this: safety, love, and the steady rhythm of a child who finally believed she belonged. He thought back to that rainy night downtown, the black car, the lonely man, the little girl with a soaked teddy bear and a desperate idea. Neither of them knew it then, but they weren't fixing each other. They were finding each other. 2 broken pieces that fit together not because they were perfect, but because they chose to stay. He hadn't needed a wife, and she hadn't needed a hero. They just needed each other. Downstairs, the house was quiet. No echoing halls, no empty rooms, just warmth. Photos on the fridge, Mia at the park, Mia making pancakes, Mia asleep on the couch with Mr. Bear on her chest. A backpack by the door, a half-finished puzzle on the coffee table. Signs of a life being lived, not just displayed. He'd sold the Bentley months ago, drove a used minivan now, practical, safe, with cup holders and a backseat covered in crayon marks. He didn't care. It got them where they needed to go. Sometimes people asked him if he missed his old life, the power, the influence, the endless possibilities. He always gave the same answer: "I have everything I need right here," and he meant it. The next morning he woke to the smell of slightly burnt toast. Mia stood on a step stool at the counter, trying to make breakfast all by myself. Flour dusted her nose. Jam smeared her cheek. The toast was black around the edges. "It's a little crispy," she admitted, handing him a plate. He took a bite. "Perfect." She beamed. They ate at the kitchen table, sunlight streaming in, talking about nothing important. What book to read next? Whether clouds were really made of cotton candy, she was convinced they were, and if dogs could dream about squirrels. After breakfast, she grabbed her backpack for school. He walked her to the bus stop, holding her hand like he always did. When the yellow bus pulled up, she turned to him. "Love you." "Dad, love you more." She climbed on, waved from the window, and disappeared around the corner. He stood there for a moment, watching the bus drive away, then turned back toward home. Not a mansion, not a symbol of success, just a house filled with love, laughter, and the quiet miracle of second chances. And as he walked up the driveway, he knew this was the richest he'd ever been.